Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. It's O'Connor and Company this Thursday morning in the nation's capital. Yeah, vermin. Donald Trump used the word vermin when talking about Antifa and communists in this country. But, supporters of Donald Trump are frequently referred to as maggots. See, that you've seen them do that.
I forgot about that.
They go MAGA.
Maggots or deplorables? That's what I'm
right,
trying to figure
deplorables.
out. They use horrible words
Another
on
way
us.
to call
Are you
us
kidding me?
Fascists,
Yes.
But no, vermin, can't use the word vermin. Especially when you're a New York building owner that probably uses the word vermin on a regular basis because it's part of your vocabulary. No, he's clearly trying to evoke Hitler, as Rashida Tlaib calls for the extermination of the Israeli state. Okay. Sorry, still hung up on that one.
I know you're really. That's been your big thing. What's happening on the 7 o'clock hour?
Coming up in 10 minutes, we're going to speak with Vincent Vargas, former Border Patrol agent. 8 o'clock hour brings us Miles Yu on the Biden-Xi summit, and then they're calling it a meeting, not a summit. So sorry. And at 8:35, Byron York, Washington Examiner. That's Mercedes Schlapp. I'm Larry O'Connor, and as you know,
hello.
Hi there. You know that Mercedes. You're running a risk with the name Mercedes in Washington D.C. I'm shocked that you haven't been carjacked yet.
Well,
right?
Apparently, wasn't it Biden's granddaughter that almost got carjacked? Of course, she's got Secret Service, so they.
Oh yeah. Technically, Mercedes. She, the granddaughter of Joe Biden, wasn't almost carjacked. Her car was almost stolen, but she wasn't in it. See, if you're in the car, then you get carjacked. And as I said,
was going to say, what's the difference? So carjacked is you're in the car,
right? And they break into the car like at a stoplight or something, drag you out of the car if you're lucky, and then they take your car while it's running. And with a name like Mercedes, I'm shocked that just someone hasn't just tried to steal you personally because, a Mercedes is a nice car. But Uber now, Uber Technologies.
Teslas, I think that's their name.
Yeah, but who goes around with the name Tesla? Uber Technologies has now tried to get on top of this carjacking problem. They announced this week that it's to improve safety features. They're verifying a rider's identity to protect their drivers against increase of carjackings, because apparently this is a thing too. You're a car thief, you're a carjacker, you're a violent criminal here in Washington, D.C., and you use your app to call for an Uber, because why go through the really messy business of having to, wait and lie in the darkness, waiting for a car to stop at a red light and then risk yourself jumping into the car and everything? No. Have the car come to you. You call the Uber comes to you, you get in, and then you violently overtake the driver and take the car away. Uber has now announced that next year they're significantly expanding the verification of rider identities and comparing rider account details against trusted data sources or an ID document. In other words, they're going to run a background check in real time on people who are calling for Ubers and cross-check it against criminal files, I guess, or other data that's out there. More data mining, of course, from Uber and other big tech companies, but this is under the guise of protecting their drivers from carjackings, which probably you have to do now at this point, Mercedes.
You got to do it to protect your drivers, right. Absolutely.
But I'm old-fashioned. I think maybe the police and the district attorneys or state's attorneys or Commonwealth attorneys in any given region or jurisdiction, maybe they should just enforce the law, and when they arrest somebody for carjacking, they should actually keep them in jail and prosecute them. But that's
not happening.
No,
that's not
even close.
I mean, it's out of control when you're talking about carjackings are up. What is it, 104% this year in Washington, D.C. alone? I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
It's pure insanity.
The company is also
and we've seen even congressmen have been carjacked.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Henry Cuellar. Absolutely. And earlier this week in Montgomery County, Maryland, police arrested 13 teenagers between the ages of 14 and 18 involved in carjackings. But here's the problem. When a teenager calls for an Uber, they probably don't have a criminal record. This may be their first criminal act.
Right.
And that's what they're going to have to. But so this is basically putting some sort of frosting on a cake made of poop. That's what this is.
What do you think is driving the carjacking? Is there like a TikTok phenomenon that we're missing?
There was
or
for a while
something.
there, specifically with stealing Hyundais or Kias, I think. They were actually showing on TikTok exactly how to do it. I think for some cases it's a joyride initiation into some sort of gang activity. But it doesn't matter to me. I mean, ultimately, to answer your question, what's really behind it? The fact that most people think that they can get away with it because they know these crimes aren't being prosecuted in jurisdictions like D.C. Because the elected officials have signaled that the problem in our society are the police. The police and the enforcement of law is the problem because of systemic racism. And so, therefore, they're going to look the other way and they're not going to prosecute these crimes.
Yeah, I mean, but have you seen the video of like those guys that came in and took out the Amazon? They took all the what were the packages from the Amazon delivery truck?
Yeah,
I mean,
in
that's
Prince
insane.
George's County.
It's like become commonplace. It's like, okay, it's Christmas time. Let's just go like steal packages from Amazon.
Well, when
Forget
a
going to the store.
When a society turns away and doesn't prosecute crimes like the riots and the looting and the arson, when they call it fiery but mostly peaceful, when they say that the rioters have a point and then they paint a mural on the sidewalk amplifying their slogan, the slogan that they chanted while they were looting stores and stealing things and justifying it and rationalizing under the guise of systemic racism or under the misguided and frankly criminal notion that, well, these stores have insurance, so what do they care? There's no loss for them. Then of course you encourage this kind of behavior because you as a society through your elected officials have given a green light to it. You've permitted it, you've encouraged it, and you've literally celebrated it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Look, I don't know up to what point is this going to keep going. You really need to see significant changes. However, the cities are being run by the same people over and over again. They keep getting reelected. There's really no change. And there is this sense of providing not that much funding into the police. And it is the Democrat policies. I mean, Larry, it just reaches to the point that unless the people want change in the cities, but it doesn't seem that they want to go in that direction because you haven't seen significant changes in Washington, D.C. Or in the major cities. And crime, people don't feel safe. They don't feel safe going into the cities, living in the cities, especially if you're a young woman. Let me tell you, it's becoming such a big challenge, I think, for a lot of just, a lot of people that are saying, look, I want to stay out of this because I'm going to get carjacked, or they're going to come steal my car. It never ends.
We have to turn it around, and we have to start winning. Listen, I in my lifetime, the cities of New York and Los Angeles reversed decades of voting for Democrats over and over again. And simultaneously in the 90s, we had Mayor Rudy Giuliani, a Republican, who ran on I'm going to clean up the city and I'm going to get tough on crime platform. And he won, a Republican in New York. And in Los Angeles, Richard Riordan, same thing. And I lived in both of those cities during those times, and they made a huge difference. Things need to get that bad. And we're starting to see it with the results of the election in Loudoun County, where we got rid of Buddha Biberai. We've cleaned house on that school board. Little by little, it's not going to happen overnight, but little by little, as things get that bad, Republicans need to run with the message that we can fix this. And we need to run competent people, and then we need to run the election. We need to do what Democrats do, which is not just run to win an election, because it's not good enough to just try to win an election. No, you have to have a plan in place to collect the votes and collect the ballots. That's what Democrats do. Yeah. They don't win elections. They just collect ballots better than us.
Yeah, it's because, the times have changed, and it's also the way the elections are run. Yeah. And when you have, 45 days ahead of election that you're able to vote, you need to have an aggressive plan to adapt to that, and we haven't done that. I was going to tell you, I know you were in Miami last week for the sleeper debate. My sister, Melissa, who loves Larry, Larry
she does
and Meredith.
I
know you guys didn't get to see each other, but
Meredith
she called me on
would suggest
Sunday.
that maybe she's a little too into me, to be honest.
Into you?
Yeah.
You're not her type. Melissa, Larry, you're not my sister's type in any way. You have to be like super, super handsome and buff. I mean, come on.
Hey.
Oh, gosh.
It's hard not to
Matt's
take that as a bit of an
Matt
insult.
is saying that I'm too rough on you. Too rough on you.
Anyway, your
sister.
sister.
It's like a Miami thing. It's like, how the Miami guys are. It's,
anyway,
how they are.
Your sister who lives in Miami, yes, what did she say?
Okay, so 3:30 in the morning, the alarm sets off. Literally, these guys were trying to steal her car. Her car. In Coral Gables, right off of Bird Road. She calls me the next day. She's like, you're not going to believe this. They were trying to break into my car and take my car.
It's hitting everybody.
And so this is what you're seeing. I mean, and people have these stories all the time. And it's just, it's like, and you would think Coral Gables, they have a great police force. They have a decent mayor. But it is just, you're talking about, in Miami in itself, it's an international crime network that's like part of this process as well.
And under these conditions, you would think Republicans would do really well in the elections. So there's some disconnect, and that disconnect needs to be addressed. Anyway, it's 7:17. We're over here, so let's get to Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
All right, we speaking of winning elections. Earlier this week, Abigail Spanberger, Congresswoman from the 7th Congressional District in Virginia, announced that she will not be seeking re-election, even though she, fought tooth and nail to beat Yesli Vega just a year ago and lied and refused to debate and just pulled out all the stops and raised gajillions of dollars. She was so desperate to be your Congresswoman for 2 more years, 7th Congressional District, that now 1 year into the term, she's basically said, yeah, I'm done with that job. Now I want to be governor. So she's not going to do crap now from this point forward for you. She's now just going to be campaigning for the next 2 years. Set that aside for a moment. Her seat is now open and up for grabs in 2024. And we have our first Democrat, Mercedes, who said that he wants to replace Abigail Spanberger. And he's got a familiar-sounding name, Eugene Vindman. Sound familiar? Well, that's because Eugene Vindman is that guy, one of the 2 twin Vindman brothers who testified against Donald Trump in the impeachment process about nothing. The impeachment process about the Ukraine phone call. This, of course, is a calculated attempt to make the entire congressional race in the 7th District about Donald Trump. Eugene Vindman is running so that he can run against Donald Trump. And any Republican who now, there's been a couple of Republicans who have put their head in. I think Derek Anderson's one of them, a former Navy SEAL, if I remember right. Excuse me, I'm doing it off the top of my head. Who now wants to be the Republican nominee. But the entire thing will be a referendum on Trump because cynically the Democrats believe that that's the way to win in the congressional. And they may be right. They may be right.
Look, that district is a swing district, but it has leaned Democrat in the past several cycles. It was a tough seat for Republicans to win. I do agree that obviously the key will there be a Democrat primary? Are there going to be more of these Democrats jumping into this race, or are the Democrats?
Yeah, sorry, Mercedes, you're bouncing in and out there. The fact here is they believe that if Trump is the nominee, then they can run all of these House seats in, as you just said, a swing district that has been favoring Democrats the last couple of election cycles. They believe by merely raising the specter of Trump, and Vindman is a name that is associated with opposition to Trump. And by running him on a national security platform and opposing Trump in a state like Virginia, in a district like 7, if Trump's the nominee, they think they're going to win. And I fear that they may be right. It's 7:21.
Making sense of your world.
I don't know where to begin.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Thanks for taking my call.
Making sense of the news.
Just want to clean this up. I referred to Derek Anderson, one of the people trying to get the Republican nomination for the 7th District there in Virginia, as a former Navy SEAL. I apologize. He's a former Special Forces Green Beret.
Okay. Which one's better?
He will be vying against Eugene Vindman here, who was on the National Security Council and then turned star witness against Donald Trump in the impeachment. This is a great example, though, Mercedes, of Democrats rewarding people who do things like this. Where's Ronna McDaniel? Is she going to sit this one out as well in the Republican election like
Larry,
she did in Virginia this last time?
You started a firestorm of the debate. You were breaking news left and right. Look, I think there's a lot of pressure on Ronna McDaniel right now to figure out if she's going to stay in or resign. She's obviously, hunkering down and hoping she can weather this storm. I think there's a lot of people in Virginia that were not pleased with Ronna not putting in money into the Virginia elections and saying that she's focusing on these federal races.
Yeah.
We knew that Virginia was going to be these state elections were going to be critical, and the RNC can absolutely give money to the state races.
Of course.
So you were the one that were on top. You were on top of that story. You were breaking that story.
Well, she broke it herself by saying that and then blaming Glenn Youngkin for it. Saying, your governor said he didn't want any money. Since when does somebody running an election say, no, we don't want your money?
That's not the way it works. And as the RNC chair, she should have shown up in Virginia, and it would have made sense if she would have been just a lot more involved in this process, especially because it was like such a small margin that Republicans lost by. It was like 2,500 votes. It's like we were right there. And really, Glenn Youngkin did everything he could, raised the money, was campaigning left and right, trying to get voters to come out. And we needed, let me tell you, the Democrats dominated the airwaves on that.
On television, yes, and they outspent Republicans, but Republicans were still within just a couple thousand votes of having a clean sweep. And there's still no excuse from RNC or from Ronna McDaniel. She has not said anything more about it. And I only raise it because now clearly Democrats are going all in on Virginia for 2024, and Republicans should announce now. Ronna McDaniel should be out now explaining her plan to keep Virginia red in the 24 election, and she's nowhere to be seen. She's on the side of a milk carton, for God's sake. It's 7:30 on O'Connor and Company.
Ooh.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
New
105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:36 as we're rolling right along on a busy Thursday morning. Thank you for letting O'Connor and Company be a part of your morning routine. We appreciate it. We really do. We never take it for granted. Coming up at 8:05, we will continue to inform you on the daily events that affect your life with Miles Yu, talking about the Biden-Xi summit that wasn't a summit in San Francisco. And at 8:35, Byron York on the changing face of the presidential political scene as Joe Biden's numbers continue to plummet. All that coming up. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes.
Hi, Larry.
We've got Vincent Vargas here, which I'm pretty sure was the name of John Travolta's character in Pulp
Was
Fiction.
it?
And maybe Vincent Vega. It was close.
I think they're
either
two
way.
very different characters.
I hope so. Vincent Vargas is a former Border Patrol agent, author of the new book Borderline, Defending the Home Front. Mr. Vargas, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure you watched with great interest in Secretary Mayorkas and FBI Director Wray's testimony yesterday before the Committee on Homeland Security. Based on your tenure at the border and now seeing what's happened over the last 3 years under President Biden, what is your assessment of the current state of our national security when it comes to protecting this border?
We definitely have our challenges. The policies that are currently in place have created the mess that we have right now. It's just the massive influx of immigration that is bogging down and overwhelming our Border Patrol agents currently.
So many people point to the fentanyl crisis as a key indication that we've lost control of this border. And I recognize people's concerns about it, the fact that any child is in danger of being poisoned by fentanyl. But sometimes I wonder if that's sort of taking the eye off a larger ball with regard to literally 8 million people. Yes, drug trafficking is a big problem down there, but with 8 million people coming into this country uninvited and illegally, I wonder if the fentanyl thing sometimes can be seen as a distraction, or what do you say? You were there. What do you think is the real concern here that people who are trying to push for a change in this policy should be focusing on?
Yeah, I do think we have outliers in those numbers that potentially do not have good interest for America. And at least that's what we're setting ourselves up for. I think those repercussions will be seen in the near future. It's not the fact that this border is open. It's that after they're apprehended by Border Patrol process, what is the situation that happens after is the concern. Our agents are out there doing their job. It's just the problem that after they're done doing the processing, the policies that are put in place, it's kind of almost a catch and release situation.
I think one of the things you have talked about also are the violent drug traffickers and the human trafficking coyotes. We've seen this time and time again where you see this case. I think Senator Ted Cruz was down by the border. There was a man with a young child, and the border agents were convinced that the child did not belong to that man, and so we know these children, which is the average age of 11, where they are sex trafficked in this country, which is just a complete disgrace. It's satanic. It's outrageous. I mean, to what point are we going to continue to allow this type of not doing DNA testing, not getting down to the bottom of trying to find these missing children that have been coming through the border? I mean, what needs to be done?
Yeah, I think the DNA testing is a great point. That'd be something that would be awesome for the border patrons to have access to. That's part of the argument when people are claiming they're separating the kids. Well, yeah, that's part of how you identify who is their parent and who isn't. We have to separate them. We have to do an investigation of the situation and identify who actually is that parent. And the best way of doing that would be a DNA connection. So, yeah, we have a lot of concerns that are going on, and we kind of have our work for us that is we're not getting the opportunities to do a full investigation and deep dive into who is the parent of these kids. And it's a challenge. It's something that we're working against everyone else right now.
Well, and what could Congress do, or what could a new president do, for that matter, that could immediately turn this around? Because it seems like this has turned around in the negative almost immediately. We kind of had border security leading up to the change of presidents. I could be wrong. You tell me if you see it differently. But it seemed like the border was relatively under control, certainly compared to what we have now. And then immediately it shifted. Can it be shifted back immediately?
Yeah, the system we have currently right now is almost incentivizing illegal immigration. As someone comes across and gets processed, then they kind of get released back into the United States for a notice to appear, to see an immigration judge at a later date. And it's been proven that only about 3% currently are even coming back. And so that system has to change. There has to be repercussions for people who come over to America illegally. And we understand there is a situation that is seeking asylum, but that seeking asylum is a different process. We have to have bigger detention centers. We have to have humanitarian centers that are holding these individuals and not just releasing them into America so that they can go and circumvent our system.
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance between, obviously, the compassionate side where there's these vulnerable families, there's these children. I know your grandmother came to the United States also, but illegally. And so how do you find that balance between that and like making sure we can have the right laws in place? Because what we're seeing now is just pure chaos on the border. I mean, we've seen over 100 terrorist suspects come through the border. I mean, this is putting our national security at risk.
Yeah, I think, that's the big concern since 9/11 is we have to have a good security posture to protect ourselves from these outliers who want to do harm to our nation. This has not changed. This has been since 9/11 and after, even during my time working, there's terrorist organizations attempting to come across our borders, and it's still happening today. And so that won't change. But what's happening is that it's kind of you have the dial set too far one direction where the focus is this illegal immigration and all this humanitarian mission that's happening. We're starting to forget that we still have to have a homeland security posture. And it's starting to be a big concern that at some point the United States might be, a Trojan horse, if you will, where at one point, if they wanted to, it could be, attacks internally. And so we really have to turn that dial back onto having repercussions for entering illegally. It really changes the posture of how the immigration process is working. When people get, punished, it tends to deter them from even attempting. And that was when you really start to see who are the guys attempting to cross illegally.
Enforcing the law and punishing those who break the law. It's shocking, but when you actually do that, you actually make a difference. Vincent Vargas, a retired Border Patrol agent and author of Borderline, Defending the Home Front. Thank you so much for joining us on this.
Not a problem. Thank you.
It is. Well, we mentioned Ronna McDaniel here, Mercedes. You know Ronna pretty well, don't you?
Yep.
Worked with her. Well, yesterday she has pushed back on Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek started a website, Fire Ronna. I think it's fireronna.com. I don't know who can fire Ronna McDaniel. No one can fire Ronna McDaniel.
No,
right?
No, they can't. I mean, it
doesn't work that way.
It's the committee members' vote. So there's a chairwoman and a chairman for each, or committee woman and committee man for each state. So they would have to. I would have to look at the
that doesn't
laws
happen.
To see what
She'd have to resign. Anyway, here she was on Fox yesterday, cut number 28.
What happened November the 8th?
Well, I would disagree with that intro a little. I don't think I'm saying they need to pass restrictions nationwide. What I'm saying is you've got to put money behind your message. Democrats are only running on abortion. In Virginia, you saw them run 9 times more ads on spend 9 times more on ads on abortion. And my point is, if somebody's lying about you and you let it go unanswered, the lie becomes the truth. So our candidates need to take this head on. I've been saying this for 2 years as a suburban woman, but the RNC doesn't do the ads. That's what the candidates do.
Wow. Is that fair?
Well, I think I don't think that was the right answer either. As the RNC, you do help and set the messaging.
Sure
now,
do.
I will tell you, I do believe these Republican consultants get paid a lot of money. And we've seen not so great results because of it. But I do think the RNC has to be part of setting the tone and the message. And quite frankly, they're a fundraising machine. They should be raising funds, raising the money needed, working with these different states, working with the state committees to make sure that they have the money that they need. If you're starting to see 9-1 we're being outspent in Virginia, don't you call over to the committeemen and say, what do you need? How can I help you?
Actually, quite the opposite happened. We spoke with Rich Anderson, chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia. He said he asked the RNC for money. He said, the Democrats just pumped $1 million in here. Please match it. They said no.
And that's exactly right. I mean, like the reality is that something fell apart at the RNC. Something happened where they were not present. And I'll tell you, what Vivek Ramaswamy is pushing for is something that a lot of people have thought for a long time, that the RNC cannot function like it did in the 1990s or in the early 2000s. We're in a different ballgame right now.
You know what I'm confused about? It's confusing to me because Ronna McDaniel, she's now, it's unprecedented. No one has ever been chairwoman or chairman of the RNC for as long as she had. Everyone thought that after 3 consecutive terms she would step down because no one's ever run for a 4th term. She did. She wanted this job, clearly. So why isn't she doing her job?
You know, she's going to argue that she is focused on the federal race and on taking down Joe Biden. The reality is, as you and I have learned, and many of us have learned, we have to win at the state, local levels. It's critical.
Yeah. That's what Democrats are doing.
That's where you can't be you can't think of just the way the RNC has been run in the past. We have to innovate. We have to fight harder. We have to raise the money to help figure out how we pay for some of these, state races if they need the help. That's your whole goal, is to raise a lot of money. And I do believe there's a lot of people who were RNC supporters in the past and are saying, no, I'm done. I'm not.
It's not good enough for her to say.
How can you do a presidential debate the day after a Virginia election? The presidential debate that no one is watching, that the one following Donald Trump is at 14% or 13%. Come on. Yep. It's like it's all wrong. And then you give it to NBC, for crying out loud. They don't even the Republicans don't watch NBC hardly. So it makes no sense where they have prioritized, and I think it's been a big mistake coming out of the RNC.
And if she thinks she's doing damage control with that interview with John Roberts on Fox, she's sorely mistaken. It's a disaster.
They're definitely on defense. Look, we should have won at least some of those races.
Of course, the Democrats pumped $1 million into the state. Yeah. The state chairman says, please match that. And her response is, we don't get involved in state elections. Well, the Democrats are involved, and the RNC's job is to get involved in every election where the Democrats are involved, because that's the point. Your job is to win elections. Why does that even have to be said?
If you win in an off-year election and you're able to have more Republican members, that helps you going into the presidential
unless for
year.
some
There's
reason
no
she listen. I hate to adjust my tinfoil hat here, but listen to cut 31 here. Cut 31. This is me interviewing Ronna McDaniel the night of the debate.
The RNC's not a state committee. We're a federal committee, right? Your candidates can take unlimited state dollars, and your governor can take unlimited state dollars. And he actually said, we don't need you guys here. So
he said, we don't need you guys here. Your governor, the fact that she wouldn't even name Glenn Youngkin. Forgive my conspiracy theory here for a moment, but if the RNC had aided Governor Youngkin's efforts in Virginia and it became a huge win for Republicans and Glenn Youngkin ended up looking like a hero by turning Virginia red, that would have really helped Glenn Youngkin's political future. And maybe there's something bigger at play here. Maybe Ronna McDaniel doesn't want Glenn Youngkin to be a leading Republican figure in America. Maybe the reason she didn't help is because she doesn't like Glenn Youngkin and she's trying to keep him from being a future rising star.
Larry, this is so uncharacteristic of you. I don't know what to do with you right now.
Well,
because you're so logical all the time.
This is logical.
I don't look.
Okay, you know what? Let me put it this way. if you wanted to hurt Glenn Youngkin and hurt his future political chances, you would have done exactly what Ronna McDaniel did.
I don't think she did. No, I think she underestimated and stayed too focused on these presidential debates that are meaningless. I'm going to say this again. They are meaningless, okay? They are not moving the needle. They are spending more time negotiating with NBC and all these places, and instead of focusing on the state races that matter that we needed to win in Virginia. They should have supported Governor Youngkin. They should have supported these candidates,
and they didn't.
Don't just
and
take the blame. Just take the blame and say we should have done more. That would have been better.
One must wonder why she made that choice. It's 7:56. Let's get straight to Jamie Whitten now in the Hadid.